Hello. How are we doing tonight? Full disclosure, the current news cycle is driving me batty, to put it nicely. It is causing me a lot of undue stress. I am having trouble concentrating on things that aren't politics. You know, like my family and well-being and eating healthy and all of those things. So while I will continue reading this book, I don't know how many times a week I will actually be able to commit to. I know as of late I haven't been doing so great on the 5 out of 5 metric. But it may get even worse. I may just sit down and do one very long reading session. I may just start doing them earlier like I'm doing right now. It's 5:30 rather than 9 and the house is empty, at least for the next few minutes. That's the other thing, is that this always ends up getting squeezed in between all sorts of other life activities, right? I mean, we're all there. I am not trying to say that I've got it worse than anybody. It's more of an attempt at commiseration, right? Personally, I recognize in myself that I do not do well when I am constantly surrounded by people. I need alone time, and I've been trying to take that by doing walks every single day. But 40-minute escape hatch with a neighborhood spin isn't really gonna cut it forever. Anyway, so that's where I am. I just wanted to let you know where I'm trying to meet you guys so that you're not surprised if you don't hear from me for a few days. I'm always happy to chat over Facebook or here in the comments section. So if you are missing my beautiful face, feel free to reach out and I will make sure to make time for you. Anyway, chapter 9, let's keep going. In Trump's orbit, the president's 36-year-old son-in-law, Jared Kushner, occupied a unique central role. He was officially listed on the White House roster as senior advisor, but acted as a de facto chief of staff. He would come to outstay 3 actual ones and was deeply involved in presidential business. Kushner graduated from Harvard in 2003 and had a combined JD MBA degree from New York University. Intelligent, organized, self-confident, and arrogant, Kushner was often deployed personally by Trump as an out-of-channels special project officer. In the first months of his administration in 2017, Trump asked Kushner to take on some of the most important and sensitive parts of the foreign policy portfolio, including acting as his liaison with Saudi Arabia and with both Mexico and China on trade issues. He also assigned Kushner the job of resolving the eternal conflict between the Israelis and Palestinians. This immediately sidelined Secretary of State Rex Tillerson and interfered with his and Mattis's plans to guide or control Trump on foreign policy. If Kushner could not find a Middle East peace plan, nobody can, Trump said. Kushner didn't. He presented 4 or 5 versions of his plan to Tillerson, who increasingly voiced skepticism. On one version, Kushner proposed Israel take the Jordan Valley, a 65-mile-long tract of land along the border between Jordan to the east and Israel, including much of the West Bank to the west. That'll never fly, Tillerson told him. So out it came, only to go back in the plan later. Tillerson thought Kushner relied too much on economic development and ignored all the hard issues between Israel and Palestine. If you make the economic benefits big enough, Kushner argued, people will say yes. Money was the key. Just pump money. Trump talked that way also. Tillerson told Kushner he did not understand the history. These people are not going to care about your money, he said. Or they'll take your money, and 5 years from now, you'll be right back where you are today. That's not going to buy you peace. Kushner strongly disputes this and believes he developed an original, balanced plan for peace between Israel and Palestine. He concluded Tillerson was not up to the job of being Secretary of State and resented Kushner's 20-year relationship with Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu. For his part, Tillerson thought Kushner's dealings with Netanyahu were nauseating to watch. It was stomach-churning. On Monday, May 22nd, 2017, Trump was in Tel Aviv meeting with Netanyahu at the King David Hotel. It was the second stop after Saudi Arabia on Trump's first international trip as president. Jared Kushner ran out to grab Tillerson. "You've got to go in there," an aide said. "They're showing the president this video. It's awful. The president's just exploding. You've got to go in there and calm the president down." By this point, there was enough distrust between Tillerson and the White House that Tillerson didn't know whether Kushner was play acting or even setting him up. But he went into the Trump-Netanyahu meeting. "Watch this," Trump said. "This is unbelievable. You've got to see this." They played the video again for Tillerson. It showed a series of spliced-together comments from Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas, who was supposed to be Israel's partner in the peace deal that Kushner was trying to put together. It sounded like Abbas was ordering the murder of children. Tillerson believed it was faked or manipulated, taking words and sentences out of context and stringing them together. "And that's what you guys want to help?" Netanyahu said. Tillerson studied the video, a crude effort of short snippets, and had no context. After Netanyahu left, Tillerson said to Trump, "Mr. President, you realize that that whole thing was fabricated." "Well," Trump said, "it's not fabricated. They got the guy on tape saying it." Trump had always supported Israel, but had recently been expressing doubts about Netanyahu and wondering aloud if the Israeli prime minister might be the real problem. Trump had even earlier said that Netanyahu on a Washington visit that he believed he was the obstacle to peace, not Abbas. It was Tillerson's view that Netanyahu had manufactured the tape to counter any pro-Palestine sentiments that were surfacing. The next morning, Trump met privately with Abbas and his people in Bethlehem and unloaded in a tirade. "Murderer," Trump said to Abbas. "Liar. I thought you were this grandfatherly figure that I could trust. Now I realize that you're nothing but a murderer. You tricked me." Kushner disputes all of this and recalled that the president's reaction to the tape was much calmer. "Now," Trump said finally to Abbas, "we're going to go outside because they've got all the press out there. I'm going to say some nice things about you and you're going to say some nice things about me, but now you know how I feel." Abbas went first because the press and played his part. "Your Excellency, Mr. President, and dear friend Donald Trump," Abbas said, "it's my pleasure to welcome you here in Palestine and receive you as a great guest of our people here in Bethlehem, the birthplace of Jesus. I would like to reiterate, Your Excellency, Mr. President, our commitment to cooperate with you in order to make peace and forge a historic peace deal with the Israelis." When his turn came, Trump said, "I want to offer my deep appreciation to the Palestinians and President Abbas for hosting me today." Trump eventually ordered the closure of the Palestinian Liberation Organization office in Washington, D.C. in September 2018 and canceled nearly all U.S. aid to the West Bank and to Gaza, as well as $360 million in annual aid previously given to the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees. Chapter 10. Dan Coates promised his wife Marcia he would reclaim control over his life. "I'll shape up," he promised her. At DNI headquarters in Virginia, he called in his senior staff about 3 months into his tenure. "I'm not going to be able to go the long haul here unless we can do 3 things, Coates said. "1, I've got to get a good night's sleep." Trump's tweeting was continuing to keep him up at night. The job was never leaving him. "Number 2, I can't just scarf down a McDonald's at 3 a.m. and 3 in the afternoon because I'm scheduled to do stuff. I've got to have time when I can have a decent meal. 3rd, I've got to have exercise." He knew it was a stress reliever. "You've got to build that into my schedule. 45 minutes at least 3 times a week. I need a trainer, someone to really push me. Finally, it's an impossible job. One person cannot do all of this. Certainly he couldn't. He was going to hire a principal deputy to handle all the inside technical and managerial nuts and bolts. He selected Sue Gordon, who had 37 years in the intelligence world as a former CIA analyst, cyber expert, and deputy director of the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency. "Sue, I can't handle all this. I give you the leash. You run this. I'll be Mr. Outside." meaning he would deal with the White House, the National Security Council, State and Defense. He would be the man on the Hill bringing and taking soundings in the House and Senate. And his number one priority would be deepening relationships with the foreign intelligence services, the British, the Israelis, the Saudis, the Germans. The foreign services were great collectors of intelligence in their areas of the world, had some fantastic human sources, and could put events in historical context. "You're Mrs. Inside," he said to Sue Gordon. Mattis hadn't known Coates, but looked him up on Wikipedia to get some of the basics and asked a few people about him. The two had lunch. Mattis was immediately taken with Coates' gentlemanly demeanor, soft on the outside, but with a spine of steel on the inside. What Mattis called vertebrae. Mattis and Coates soon began lingering after NSC meetings when Trump had left. "What the hell is going on?" Coates asked in a private sidebar conversation with Mattis after one session. In just one example, Trump wanted to withdraw U.S. troops from Afghanistan and South Korea. There was a rush. "Instantly, get them out," Trump had commanded. "That's crazy," Mattis said to Coates. "That's dangerous." Coates was troubled by the absence of a plan or a consideration of the human dimension, the impact on the troops, the allies, the world, or a sense of the weight of the office. "The president has no moral compass," Mattis replied. The bluntness should have shocked Coates, but he'd arrived at his own hard truths about the most powerful man in the world. "True," Coates agreed. "To him, a lie is not a lie. It's just what he thinks. He doesn't know the difference between the truth and a lie." They found themselves often looking across the table at one another in the Situation Room with concern. They had to deal not only with America's adversaries, but with the failure of the administration to work together and define its strategy. Mattis concluded that Coates would not waver. Whenever the president would challenge the intelligence findings, Coates firmly stuck to the facts. Mattis knew that Coates was carrying a burden, but was sure he could stand the strain. Still, waters ran deep in Dan Coates. He was cool and not defensive, unintimidated by complexity. Mattis found himself often thinking that Coates was a model of what he needed in government service, although maybe he was too decent. As Coates' relationship with Mattis grew closer, his friendship with Pence grew more distant. Once he became vice president, Coates said, he built that kind of cocoon around him that basically said, "This is the role of the vice president." In Coates' eyes, his old friend had become passive, subservient, and obedient. Marcia Coates was more charitable. Mike Pence, she told others. No doubt he believes God put him where he is, and his job is to be a good VP, a loyal and supportive, and even though he doesn't agree with so much of it. Of Pence, Marcia said, "One time we had dinner with him. We didn't want to put him on the spot. Something outrageous had happened. We were at the White House and some dinner. And he came over to say goodbye, and I just looked at him like, 'How are you stomaching this?'" Marcia Coates added. "I just looked at him like, 'This is horrible.' I mean, we made eye contact. I think he understood. And he just whispered in my ear, 'Stay the course.'" At the same dinner, Dan Coates said that was exactly what Pence had said to him. Stay the course. All right, folks. That does it for today. Next chapter, chapter 11, is a little bit longer. It comes in at 21 minutes. So we've already been going at this for a little while. I'm going to call it quits today. That being said, I am going to probably be doubling these up as we go forward when I can. It turns out that with less than 30 days to go until the election, and I very much want this book done at the very least the night that they're, that we're all going to the polls. There are 46 chapters, which means that at least 15 of those need to be doubled up. Actually, at this point, 17 of those need to be doubled up. Shouldn't be that hard. But anyway, I digress. I'm going to go disappear. Y'all stay sane. Love you all. Wish you safe. Stay healthy out there.